Hi, this is Chris Martinson, CEO of Peak Prosperity, and I'm here with your weekly update. It is Friday, July 20th, 2018. Wow, as crazy as things get, they seem to get a little crazier. Now, what's happening in the United States right now is getting very concerning, and I've just written a very large, extensive two-parter about this because the concern is this. When people begin to sort each other into groups and when our identities become more important than our individuality, we see this at sports games, right? Where, two opposing teams, their fans end up fighting each other because they've sorted themselves into groups where the identity really matters. Well, we're seeing a lot of that same identification happening right now in the United States. And by the way, the media and other very powerful actors in the story are very interested in going forward and creating for us these divisions. And these divisions are starting to result in what's called dehumanization or other aspects, which frankly, these wedges are beginning to really tear the country apart. It's beginning to tear organizations apart. It's beginning to tear families apart. I've heard of families saying either these certain topics are off limits or they've already fractured over these sorts of things. That tells us where we are in this story. And of course, what that leads to eventually is civil war. Now, whether that's a civil war like North versus South with actual guns, or it's a more subtle form, which involves that fracturing process we're talking about, where people begin to lose faith and trust and respect for the authorities. And what we're seeing now happening in Washington, D.C. is no less than the completely laying bare of the idea that the rules don't apply to the rich and the powerful. And so what we're starting to see is this fracturing process. And so we're tracking that. We're trying to make sense of it. And really, I'm not here to try and pretend I'm any sort of expert on social dynamics, civil wars, anything like that. What I am telling you is that every day that we spend focusing on false boogeymen and narratives that actually are not true threats to us is another day that we're not spending on the things that actually are real threats to us, right? And that stuff is continuing apace. Just look at what's happening in the United States, and this is true across Japan and Europe and all sorts of other places, but just look what's happening with our federal budget deficit. We're going to crack 1.1 trillion this year, 1.2 trillion next year, 1.3, 1.3, 4, 5, 6, up to 2.4 trillion. Yearly deficits as far as the eye can see, being driven by higher interest costs and the fact that Social Security is now upside down and hemorrhaging cash. By the way, there is no trust fund. So as we watch these processes begin to unfold, the tensions are ratcheting up. And what we need to be talking about is that our politicians and our monetary authorities are insisting that we focus on things that have no actual bearing on your or my lives. The disappearing insects. If I took you on a tour of my yard, dozens of plants in bloom right now, we would have to hunt all day to find just a couple of honeybees, and we might not see any butterflies. That's true here. It's true all across the Northern Hemisphere in most locations right now. This is courtesy of the fact that we're doing something, my bet is neonicotinoid pesticides, and we're not addressing that. It needs addressing. We're collapsing the bottom of the food chain. Full stop, bad idea, right? We look at pensions that are completely unfunded, underfunded, or never going to meet their obligations in municipalities at the state level, entitlements at the federal level. Full stop, we need to talk about these and have a plan. But there is no plan, and that's why you need a plan and I need a plan. We don't know when this is all going to crack. Frustratingly, the markets, double quotes, are being controlled on a daily basis by the authorities, and of course they are. The authorities are desperately afraid of what happens if the Truman Show markets that they put up crack. So we're tracking that as well. And so you need to understand that people that I interact with, very wealthy people, in fact, the wealthier they are, the more they seem to know about this dynamic. Maybe you saw it. There was an article came out last week talking about how the wealthy are plotting to leave us all behind. Catchy headline, thanks CBS Market Watch, but actually what it was people who have access to good information are looking at the data and saying, I need to start preparing for the possibility, if not the probability, that the future is going to turn out in ways that are socially disruptive, if not chaotic, if not civil war, however you characterize that. I hate to be the bearer of this news, but there are forces now that are taking the natural tensions and pressures that we're feeling around our collapsing ecosystems, around the fact that net energy from oil is declining, around the fact that we have completely unsustainable fiscal policies and monetary practices. Those are legitimate, shocking pressures. I mean, don't be a rat in a cage in this story. Don't buy the propaganda. Don't be emotionally manipulated. That stuff takes your productive energy away from what you need to do, which is live life to the fullest, squarely face the predicaments as they exist, and develop your own plan of action. That's what we're doing at Peak Prosperity. And so to get through this data, to really understand what that data is, if you want to have a chance to interact with myself, with Adam Taggart, and with David Stockman, who's going to be our special guest at our next summit, this is going to be on Sunday, September 19th in New York City. Come to peakprosperity.com/NYC. Check that out. It's going to be a really special day, a whole day. We'll start with some data, then you get to ask any questions you want about this or any other topic that's on your mind, but it's going to be a fantastic experience. So with that, please come on by, check out the new two-parter I've just written, and engage with our website. Love to see you in New York City. We'll see you next week.